Friday, the 21st of February 2024. Right. It's a news event. Now, today I want to talk about something that is happening, which is the Gaza War. What is the update, right? The Gaza War updates and its effect. I think that's very important for us to understand the developments. And if you remember the previous reports also about the Gaza War, I think those also must be taken into account for you to understand what's going to happen next also as well, because they're interrelated. Now, first of all, Israel has decided, unfortunately, to withdraw from ceasefire negotiations with Hamas, labeling the group's condition as unrealistic. They even used the word absurd, to be frank. And what happened was Hamas has demanded a complete pullout of Israel forces from Gaza in exchange for freeing hostages and the release of all Palestinian detainees in Israel custody. So this is unrealistic. Now, preparations are underway by the Israeli military for a potential strike on Rafah, a town near the Egyptian border, which is believed to host the remaining Hamas combatants. This area is also home to over 1 million people sheltering from Gaza. Okay, so a lot of these countries are firmly opposed to this, because they said once an Israeli military attack on this area, it will be like a slaughterhouse. A lot of civilians would be killed, and because of that, right? William Burns, the director of the US CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, held discussions with David Barnea, the Mossad director. Mossad here is also the like the spy, like exactly like the CIA. The opposite of CIA for Israel is the Mossad. So alongside with the Prime Minister of Qatar and the head of Egypt's intelligence services, aiming to negotiate a settlement. Now, the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, had initially refused to send an Israeli delegation to the talks, but eventually agreed to do so following pressure from US President Joe Biden. Now, like I said before, if you've been following my previous reports, right? Now, all wars so far, all is the Israeli Palestinian wars, right? And the Israel with the Middle East war all ended when US in a way stand their feet down and forcefully stop all these wars and telling Israel to do that. And you can see this thing happening again. That's why I said for me, based on my observations, US has the power to actually stop everything. So what also happened, transpired next, was the United States, the US, has put forward an alternative proposal for the United Nations Security Council resolution advocating for a temporary halt to the hostilities between Israel and Hamas. Now, this move aims to avert a significant ground invasion. They don't want that to happen by Israel in Rafah, right? Now, this resolution is a counter to an Algerian drafted resolution which the US threatened to veto. Okay. Now, the US expressed concern that the Algerian proposal might undermine ongoing negotiations involving the US, Egypt, Israel, and Qatar to facilitate a ceasefire and secure the release of hostages by Hamas. Like I mentioned earlier, the primary objective for the United States is to prevent a ground offensive, fearing that significant repercussions for regional peace and stability. They don't want this on their hands already. It's just too much. And the longer it lasts, right, it will create more enemies for the US as well, right? So the US draft resolution right now condemns call by Israel government officials for Jewish settlers to relocate to Gaza and oppose any actions that would alter Gaza's demographic or territorial integrity against the international law. Okay, so this to me is the hardest stance ever by the US. Okay, because the US understands that the potential for the conflict to extend beyond Gaza raises fears of profound global economic downturn, potentially boosting the price of gold as well, right? If you have this, gold will go up. But another part of it also you need to understand is that if this global economic downturn actually happens and happens on the year of elections, the chances of Biden's re-election is really, I would say, would one more really low, right? So one part they need to protect. So I believe that there's a possibility that US is going to come down even harder, and hopefully that we will see an end to this Gaza war already. But nevertheless, what's happening right now, the progression that we are seeing, it's really I say the risk is one notch higher at the current moment, and that's boosting the price of gold. Not only that, we have seen central banks have significantly increased their gold acquisitions to record highs in recent years, aiming to diversify reserve and minimize credit risks. Now, this trend continued into the fourth quarter with an additional 229 tons added to the global official reserves, bringing the year's net demand to 1037 tons, just below the record of 1082 tons set in 2022. Now, what does this mean? How significant this means? Okay, this marks 2 consecutive years of central bank gold purchases exceeding 1000 tons, highlighting the sustained strong demand for gold among central banks. Okay, so that's the reason why you are seeing gold going up and up and up right now. Okay, now overall, what do I see is that global central banks should remain net buyers again this year in 2024, but a third consecutive year of 1000 ton net purchases remain unlikely. Okay, prices at elevated levels, unless there's a word here, there's a word that means what? Unlikely, unless, okay? Unless there is a de-dollarization across emerging central banks that turns to a crisis of confidence on the US dollar. Okay? So we won't see another 1000 tons of buying unless we have a de-dollarization event across emerging central banks, the emerging markets. Okay, so this is something that we need to see, because this word here, de-dollarization, this is something that is going to become a more pronounced issue going forward, especially if US continues to print money together with the rest of the world, especially the US, okay, because their debt is just so high and people might start rejecting the dollar aspect. And one of the groups that could actually cause that to happen, as you know, we have discussed before, the BRICS, okay, it's they feel threatened by whatever that's happening, or after the Russia, as well as the inflation that's happening right now. So this is something that everyone we need to look on into going forward. Okay, so that's the end for the fundamental report for today. Let's look at the charts.